Hi everybody, this is foXnoMad, and today I want to help you travel smarter by sharing with you a Q&A I did with Derek Barron. Derek Barron is a friend of mine. He runs one of the biggest travel blogs on the internet, but also he runs a very successful tour company. So we got to sit down in a second live chat, and many of you had been asking for us to sort of post that as a Q&A. So what I did was I took the second live chat and I cut it down into a Q&A so that you can watch or listen in the background like a podcast. And I think this Q&A will be particularly interesting for you if you like travel stories. So I've known Derek for a long time, and I heard many stories that I didn't know before that were hilarious, interesting. He's been traveling for 19 years, so it's a very colorful set of stories and adventure. So we start from his childhood all the way up until now, where he's been traveling for 19 years. And I think this will be interesting for you as well if you want to turn, let's say, your traveling into a career, and also learn that you can't follow everybody's path because it's a very unique path. You kind of got to figure out what works for you, but I think this Q&A will give you some insights into how to figure that out. And I think it's an enjoyable listen. So I'll be quiet now and let you listen to the Q&A. Here you go. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. We'll get started. I saw some comments, but basically what I wanted to do this time was do sort of a better version of the live stream test that we did last time. So what I wanted to do is just chat. I mean, just really kind of just hang out.
Let's chat.
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions from before, but I wanted to ask you what's going on. What are you up to in the next couple of days, couple of weeks?
Thursday, flying out to Kiev, in Ukraine, as I have one of my tours that I'll be leading there for about 8 days. And then I'm off to Romania for another tour that I'll be leading for 10 days. Then I'm heading to Spain. Get me to Spain. Going to Valencia, Spain, where I'm going to set up my home base, hopefully.
Of all the cities in Spain, why Spain, first of all, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, Spain is it's just a lifestyle, like, pretty much. Just a great lifestyle, and, the food, the people, the culture, all that stuff. It has nice beaches, and it's quite convenient, I would say, for me. Just, I don't know, close enough to the US when I need to get back, close enough to other parts of Europe or other places that I run my tours, so I think it's kind of convenient. Valencia is just, I don't know, I like small cities, so it's not the biggest city. I like beaches, has some beaches, easy to walk around, lots of parks, just nice and low-key, simple. And I think at this point, I am ready for low-key and simple.
Well, how long is that visa? Did you get that visa that you got?
No, I applied for the non-lucrative residency visa, which, if all goes well, then I should have that next month. That allows you to stay for a year, and then you can renew it, of course, for 2 years after that. But ideally, yeah, I'd love to just use Spain as my base for as long as I can. And
when was the last time, like, how long have you lived in one, like, the longest you've lived in one place? Like, since, I mean, it's 19 years, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean,
yep. I don't know. Like, honestly, when Bucharest, Romania was my base, I don't know if I ever actually, for 4 years it was my base, but I don't know if I was ever in the country for more than 6 weeks at a time. Yeah, Playa del Carmen was my base back in 2016 in Mexico for 8 months, but I don't think I was ever in Mexico for more than 2 months at a time. So, yeah, I don't think I've ever stayed in one place like without leaving for more than 2 months in a long time. I can remember Australia back in 2008.
I mean, do you start to get like antsy, like you gotta
that's gotta do something. I just feel it's one of those things, let go of everything. I feel like, oh man, I just need to stay in one place for a while. And as soon as I get there, about 6 hours later, I'm like, oh, where am I going next? So I think it's in my blood now, so I can't get it out. But just something about having that base I think it should be pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. I mean, do you imagine like when you're like 70 and like you're gonna just be like, I gotta stay in one place? Or do you think, do you think like...
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that I'll travel at this ridiculous pace.
So I wanted to ask you a few things that I don't know if you've ever written about, but that I find interesting, which is, so you're a kid, right?
Yes, I was.
Before you were, let's say, 10, did you travel for vacation? Did your parents take you places? I mean...
Yeah, I went to a few places, just family vacations. Just honestly, I had one uncle who was working at like some big hotel chain. So pretty much wherever he was, we would go for our vacation just because we could stay for free. So we ended up in like the most random Knoxville, Tennessee, and the most random places. But that was really it. Took one trip in high school to Europe.
So not a lot of traveling.
Not a lot of traveling at all. Yeah.
So then you get done with high school, go to college.
Yeah.
Go to a couple, right? You switch
Went to a
schools.
couple, yeah.
Like
Started in Atlanta, went up to University of Massachusetts. Still was not satisfied, so I was like, it was just luck. Like I remember going into the study abroad office, and I was like, I need something. And they were like, well, but your program, pay the same amount you pay here, and head off to Australia next year. I was like, all right, done. And that was it, and that's basically what changed everything. That one decision. I remember the exact building at the university that I walked. In the moment that I walked out of there, being like, I am going to Australia, and that's it.
And you had never been to Australia?
No, I'd never been to Australia. Definitely never been. Just one family trip to Europe. And
where in Europe?
we did London and London.
I
Paris.
thought it was gonna be Spain.
No. London, Paris, Belgium, Amsterdam.
Huh. And then that was it. So like you had not really traveled. And so where did Australia like come to? I mean, like
far away. I was just like, you know what? I always thought, I was like, there's something more out there. Like I just need to do something. I really want to go somewhere that I probably won't get to at any point in my life. That was kind of the idea. So I was like, I'm going to Australia, the farthest place away. I'm just gonna go and have this cool experience, and hopefully.
But did you know anybody there, like in Australia?
Nope, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. I was like, I didn't care. Like it was my first big decision that I made myself that forced me. Like I just forced myself. I was like, you just gotta go. Like you just gotta go. Even though I was like petrified, but I was like, you just gotta go. That's it. So that's what I went.
So at this point, you've graduated college, and then you're going to Australia, right? Like that's the time.
I didn't graduate college yet, so I went to study abroad.
Study abroad. Okay, so then you go, and they have, I guess they have a program in a different city or whatever. Like you don't pick where you go.
Yeah.
So you study like what, like a semester there. That's the idea. So then you go to Melbourne. You don't know anybody.
No.
But obviously there are probably other students from your school.
Yeah.
And then what happens? I mean,
it was awesome. First night they picked me up at the airport. They brought me straight to the university, into like the dorm rooms where I'd be staying with other foreign exchange students.
Yeah.
They had a little gathering. Met like 20 people that night, and that was it. Boom. I'm still in touch with half those people now. And there was some Australian students were there as well. I'm still in touch with some of them now. Like that was it. Like literally, it was the first night after a trans-Pacific flight. I arrived, didn't even go to sleep, went to this gathering, and that was that. Like so, it was. As soon as I got, I was like, "This is awesome."
So like 3 months Australia.
So I was there for 6 months total.
6 months. So like
4 months of classes and 2 months of traveling.
Did you like do well in your studies, or did you fail? I mean, what were you studying?
No, they were super laid back there. I was studying sports management, which is what I was in sports law, which is what I was studying in the U.S. So it was direct transfer over. And honestly, the professors were so laid back. They were just like, "Oh, you should go see this part of the country." I was like, "Yeah, but we got an exam." They're like, "You can take it when you come back." I was like, "All right." And then I would travel around with friends. We would drive up to Sydney in the middle of the week, come back, and like they were so relaxed. So I did really well on everything. And it was great. And I got some travel in as well and met a ton of people.
So then that ends. So your 6 months abroad ends.
Yeah.
Now you're like a senior, I'm gonna guess.
Yes, and I went back for my senior year.
Last year. So you go back to Atlanta?
No, so I'm back to Massachusetts. Yep, graduated there and pretty much
ready to be a sports manager.
Ready to be a sports agent. I was ready.
That's just because you like sports, or did you have somebody in the family that was an agent or something like that?
It came time to choose what I needed to study, and the movie Jerry Maguire had just come out. So I was like,
no way.
Done.
Really? Jerry Maguire?
No joke.
I've never seen that full movie.
No joke. I literally was like, I'd have like 1 week to decide. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was like, boom, that looks cool.
So you graduate, you've got a degree in sports management. Yeah. Then what? I mean, like.
So then I was like, okay, it's the summertime. Like, you know, I'm going to use the summertime for applying and getting some connections. I had a few like potential connections in the industry. So I was contacting people and you know, just seeing how it would go. And then I got the idea that I want to go to Southeast Asia. I was like, you know what, before I get into this career, let me go to Southeast Asia. and travel around for 3 months. Then I'll get in. I was quite confident. I was like, oh, these connections are pretty good I have, so I should be able to get in the industry when I get back. So let's do that. So I actually decided to save up some money. So I was a substitute teacher in Boston for just a couple of months.
Nice.
Oh boy, that was interesting.
What were you? Wait, I didn't know that. What were you teaching?
Let's put it this way. It was at a school where most substitute teachers last a day.
All right.
Yeah. I was like, there were fights in the class, and I was just like sitting there like, excuse me, could you break it up? And then I would have to go run out and get other teachers.
No way. Like, tell me about that.
Oh, man.
Like, what happened in the fight? I mean, like...
No, people just stopped fighting. Like, that was it.
Like, you're at the board or whatever.
Like, nobody's paying attention. I tried my best. And, like, I mean, I remember one class I was there, and in the middle, I'm trying to teach, like, history. And all of a sudden, the students just started playing, like, music on their desks. Like, one person was using the desk for the drums. One person was like, boom, 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 boom. And then, like, one girl just started rapping, and she started saying, "You can't tell us what to do. You're just the mother effing substitute." So I was like, huh. And then I got like so frustrated that I just yelled out, "Shut the F up." Yeah.
Nice.
And that changed it all. After that, I was known as the "Shut the F up" teacher, and everybody loved me.
Yeah.
Yeah, just that whole thing there. Everyone was high-fiving me in the hallways. Everybody listened to my classes after that. So it was actually a pretty cool experience. Before that, I was like, I really need the money. I can't get out of here.
So the fights in the class?
Fights all the time.
Really? Guys, girls, both?
Well, both. There were fights all the time. You know, it was one of those schools like they had nothing. It was so old. The books were old. The teachers looked like the teachers' room was like a war zone. They're all like, yeah.
So then a fight breaks out, and then you just like dip out of the class. You're like,
no, I tried to break it up.
Yeah.
Like, excuse me. And then I would go and knock on usually the door of a teacher next door, and they had much more experience. They would come in and break that up in 2 seconds.
Man.
There was also security at the school, so you could call security.
Did that prepare you for anything in your life, or was that a useless?
That came in handy when I got to Afghanistan. Yeah. It was amazing money.
Yeah?
Yeah. It was, I mean, for someone who just graduated college with no experience whatsoever, to work basically 5.5 hours a day, I had to be there. And walk away with like $250 a day. Yeah.
Huh. Is that because the school was bad, or like?
It's pretty high. It's highly regulated, so it was just very set. Like if you get into the substitute teaching system, that is your pay. Like,
huh? And then you just did that because it was fun, or?
It definitely was not fun, but I needed the money, so I did that for a couple months until I saved up about $1,500, and then basically it was time, like the end of the semester anyway, and I bought my ticket to fly out to Bangkok on Christmas Day, 1999, with my $1,500.
I'm not very well planned, but I tend to plan a little bit better. But I think that's the most interesting, like one of the craziest things. Like I read about people is $1,500 and I just left.
Right.
And just would figure out what would happen. I mean, that was you, right? Like
that was me. At the time, though, I was thinking 3 months. So I was like, okay, 3 months, that's $500 a month. That should be all right. I'm going to stay in dorm rooms and hostels. I'm going to eat off the street. I'm going to travel on local buses. I'm going to pay no entrance fees, basically. I was just thinking, like, I'm just going to go do it. And I'll go home broke and I'll get a job.
And Southeast Asia, just because everybody...
It was actually Southeast Asia because of Australia. I met a lot of students there that were from like Malaysia, Cambodia, Vietnam, stuff like that. Places that obviously I'd heard of, but I knew nothing about. So just getting to know those people, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Let me go there. I don't know anything about any other part of the world. So if I'm going to go somewhere, might as well go there. I also saw like a National Geographic one day that had an article about the Millennium celebration that was going to take place at Angkor Wat in Cambodia. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to definitely go into Southeast Asia now, and I'm going to that for the Millennium. And that's what I did.
You were going to spend 3 months there. Then what happened?
Yeah, pretty much like 10 days into it, when I was in Cambodia, right there around the Millennium, I was just like, this is awesome. Like, I mean, it sounds so silly and simple, but I was like, I'm meeting so many cool people. I'm seeing so many cool stuff. I was like, so much cool stuff. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to stop after 3 months. And I was like, I don't even want to be a sports agent anyway. So I was like, forget this.
Screw you, Jeremy.
That's it. And I was like, I'm going to travel forever. I'm going to travel forever, man. Like, that's how I was. Like, that's it. I'm doing it.
And were your parents like absolutely freaking out like at that?
Oh, yeah, of course. No, I called them. I waited a little bit. Then I called them. I was like, I'm not coming back in 3 months. Like, what the hell do you mean? And yeah, they were pissed.
But like, I mean, like after you graduated and you went to Southeast Asia, were they like panicky? I mean,
they were okay with that. They were okay with the trip, and they were panicky, but they were okay with it just because whatever. Like 3 months, what can go wrong? But yeah, then when I told them I was going to travel forever, Yeah,
But
they
did you
freaked out.
literally say forever, like forever? You know, like
Yeah, that's the thing. I didn't do it well. I learned a lot of lessons on that one. Like, I wouldn't advise calling your parents and saying, I'm going to travel forever. I was just like, but yeah, I was like, no, I'm not coming back. I think I'm going to travel. And they were like, what are you going to do? I was like, I don't know. I'm going to find some ways to make money. And
I think having that resistance from your family can go either one of two ways, right?
Right.
Like, I think it's a little bit good to have because that might kind of sort of snap you into shape. Like, hey, man,
Yeah.
you need to figure out like
what you doing? Yeah.
right. And so I think in that sense it's good. Like it forces you to figure out how to do
Yeah,
it.
especially
right?
back then, you know, it was 1999, year 2000. So my parents can go online and see examples of thousands of people traveling around the world and working and making
Yeah.
money and doing whatever and surviving. Like back then, it was like unheard of. So, but I did tell myself, I was like, before I called my parents, I was like, okay, I have to make this happen if I make this phone call. I had no idea how to do it, but I was like, so am I serious? And I was like, I am. So I called them, told them I'm not coming back, and I was like, well, I have no choice but to make this happen now.
What was that call like? Like so you're planning it out, okay.
Yeah.
Was it spontaneous or was
No. I planned it a couple weeks, and I remember it was like one of those old little like call booths that you can go into back then.
Yeah,
You know, it
yeah.
had like a signboard out front, list all the countries and how much
Oh,
it
like a
costs
phone-
to call.
phone booth,
Yeah,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
just and like a little receipt comes out of the little machine when you're done,
Yeah.
and that's how much you pay. No, I thought about it, and then I finally just went in. I was like, I'm just gonna do it, and I was like. I called my mom. I was like, yeah, I decided I'm not coming back. She's like, excuse me? I was like, yep.
So was
Bad connection. Sorry, you gotta go. No.
it screaming? Was it like
wasn't-
you're crazy?
It wasn't scary. It's like, what are you talking about? Blah, blah, blah. It doesn't make any sense. You don't have any money. How are you going to survive? You know, the usual. It was all fair questions. And I didn't have
Yeah.
really any answers to any of them. So it's kind of like, well, we'll talk later. And it just kind of, that was it. So I
Yeah.
just kept them updated as life went on. But
Now that it's been 20 something years since then, right? Like
yeah.
if you had a reader write you and ask in your at that age,
Yeah.
but today, hey, so you know, I just graduated college.
Right.
I'm gonna be a accountant, or I don't know,
Yep.
something. I don't know, whatever popular movie. I'm gonna be a Jedi Knight, but I'm gonna leave my Jedi Knight potential, go to Southeast Asia for 3 months and try to stay there forever or travel forever.
Mhm.
As this age now, what would you? I mean, like,
Have a plan.
yeah,
That's the thing. Because first of all, it's very difficult if you don't have a plan. It's also difficult to like create this life while you're on the go.
okay,
At the same time, it's much easier to make a plan these days. Back then, I don't know how I would have made a plan because I couldn't go online and find all these opportunities or examples of what other people were doing. So there was almost no way to make a plan. But today, you can actually go on and see like, oh, what opportunities? Maybe I do want to teach English. Maybe I do want to do this. And you can kind of figure out how you can use your skills to actually create something. And you can kind of figure out a lot of it ahead of time. And I think that's the biggest, benefit of having the internet to go rely on and having other people out there doing it. People go work at resorts. I have a friend who's, a scuba diving instructor. I mean, you have things like this, but then you obviously have you can jump on all these websites and do translations or editing or, videos for people or writing, marketing, social media. I mean, there's a lot of stuff obviously that wasn't available back then that you can just kind of, if it's something you're interested in, kind of try and get into.
I mean, yeah, I guess have a plan is good. I think people have the dream, but they don't get to the plan stage very easily. In other words,
Right.
like they don't have the mechanics to figure that out.
Yeah, I think, and the problem is you do read a lot about the stuff out there that's just like, just pack your bags and go and things will work out. I mean, okay, it worked out for me and it can work out, but it's not going to work out in the way that most people envision, where you just step off the plane and suddenly everything just falls into place and you don't have to do any effort and you just, so I think that's a thing. Having a little bit of a plan, kind of a little bit of a direction definitely goes a long way these days.
So then you're like, okay, mom, boom, I'm staying. Click, I guess, in those days.
Yeah.
And then what happened? I mean, like, what's the next step? Did you know at that point when you called her? Like, do you have any idea? Like, I'm gonna
No,
do anything?
I had no idea what I was going to do. I was like, well, I'm going to continue my trip because the plan was 3 months in Southeast Asia. So it was
Thailand.
Cambodia, quick Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos, and then back to Thailand. So I was like, okay, I'm going to continue. And luckily I met another traveler who was just like, when I was talking to him one night, and he was like, oh man, you should go to Chiang Mai, Thailand. Just advertise that you that you can speak English and you'll get students and stuff like that. So I continued, finished Vietnam, Laos, went to Chiang Mai, Thailand, and that's what I did. I put up some signs. I literally went to the stationery store. I still remember exactly where it was. Bought some cardboard and some markers and wrote native English speaker willing to tutor in English. And we went and put them up all around the huge Chiang Mai University. And got about 100 calls in the first week.
To learn English. So these are Thai students.
Thai students that already had a grasp of English. So it was a way for them to practice with the native English speaker. And pretty much just, that was it. And just started holding. I had no materials, no books, and just started pretty much holding classes like in the field. Or in a Dunkin' Donuts, we had classes. It was ridiculous.
I mean, do people still do that? Do you know? Like, is that still a thing, or?
Yeah, I think people still do that. I mean, it's a little bit more heavily regulated now, so it's kind of frowned upon, and I guess, you kind of need to teach English a little bit more through official means with official visas and stuff like that. But back then, it was a lot more common for people to just kind of post and tutor some people in English. And
so now you've graduated college. 3 months have passed.
Yeah.
You've traveled around all these Southeast Asian countries. You're in Thailand now teaching these poor kids English, or like their conversationalist. How long does that last?
So that lasted basically a few months, like about 6 months.
Yeah.
That allowed me to keep my, just kind of survive, and I wasn't making a fortune or anything. Allowed me to survive. In
how much
Thailand.
did you make, by the way?
I was trying to think of what we were charging, but wasn't much. I was basically paying enough to cover my food and my rent, which back then was not much. I mean, that was probably $300 a month, maybe. Yeah, no, this was a nice room. Like they had like these like apartment buildings where it's just a room. It almost looks like a hotel room with a little kitchen in the corner and a private bathroom and everything. I think it was nice. Like we had a little balcony. I think if I remember correctly, I was paying about $120 for the month.
For the month.
Yeah, with utilities included. Yeah.
You're teaching them, and then you get to a point where you're like, man, I don't want to teach these kids anymore, and I want to move on to bigger and better things, or did the business dry up, or like?
No, the business was going. It was more of just, I kind of got itchy feet. And also I met another traveler who then told me about cruise ships and was like, oh, you should think about working on cruise ships. Like, it's a great gig. And I was like, what? Like, I don't know. Nothing. It was something that never came into my head. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And he's like, yeah, here's a contact for you at Carnival Cruise Line. I was like, all right, whatever. And next thing I know, I mean, it took some time, but a few months later, I was had an interview. I was working on cruise ships. Then I said goodbye to all my students and realized I probably didn't help them very much when, like, I remember the going away. Like, all the students came, we hung out. And at the end, there was this one girl. She was quite shy, and she was like, I dropped something, and she picked it up for me, and I said, oh, thank you. And she just turned to me and said, pleasure me. Yeah, I was like, should I correct? I don't know how to correct that one. So I was just like, no, been good teaching you. And that was like the last conversation with my students. So I'm not sure how good I did, but that came to an end, and off I went.
So then how long were you on the cruise ships?
So the cruise ships were interesting. I ended up doing it for about 4.5 years over the next 9 years. Pretty much I would work, like the first time I worked 1 8-month contract, and then I went off and traveled for a year. Then I switched to another cruise line and pretty much worked like 6 months, and then I went and traveled for 6 months, then came back. So I was kind of doing this, and I worked for 3 different cruise lines. I was all over the world and would use my vacation time to travel. So it was pretty cool. Oh, I saw a family brawl like once, like just the family, like father and the son were pounding on each other in front of the elevator.
How old was the son? Like adult?
I'm saying his 20s, yeah. And I had people screaming at me and one guy, he ran back into he was so drunk. He ran back into the lobby. I was the tour manager, so I was at the tour desk. He ran back into the lobby and he just took a running start and dove over the tour desk to try and attack me.
Did he get you? Like,
no, he dove over the desk. I mean, I saw him coming, so I just moved to the side. He was completely drunk and he just kind of was laying across the tour desk.
But why did he try to attack you?
Because his beach tour in St. Martin had to go to an alternate beach because of the wind conditions, and the boat could not go to the first beach. So he was furious, and he said that his lawyer was going to be in touch and sue me because they did not go to the beach that was stated in the tour description.
And then, so like, there's one door, right? And this is the room. Is it like a room or like
this was
an
the
office?
lobby? It was the lobby. So it was like a desk, like a hotel desk. So I was there, and I was behind it with one of my colleagues, this Italian guy, and
You just move out of the way.
And out of the way, I call security, and security came. Yeah, it's big on cruise ships. They also have policy for some people, like if you get into trouble, they basically just place security outside your cabin. So you're confined to your cabin, and the security will sits outside and make sure you don't come out.
Because you travel, I mean, you get to go to the places, you get a couple days off. Obviously, you probably made enough to work 6 months, take 6 months off, kind of sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, it totally depends on the position and all that stuff.
Like, is it a good job or is it, do you know what I mean? Like, are the condition, like,
It depends. Like, there's some crew members, you know, if you're cleaning cabins, for example, you're probably sharing with 2 or 3 other people. So it kind of depends. But I see the question there about the dumping. I mean, a lot of the cruise lines, I think it was like in the 80s, 90s, were almost permanently fined for dumping. And I think, you know, the period that I worked on it was pretty good and there wasn't much of that happening. At the same time, you know, the cruise ships do have some pretty impressive recycling stuff that goes on there. At least the ships that I worked on, it was quite impressive. And it was every port we went into, everything was recycled and taken off the ships. They recycle the water, even the gray water, they turn into drinking water. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that they actually do.
I just imagine there's like a big hatch on the cruise ship that they
Yeah,
pull
just
it and like
open
all
it
this
up, everything
crap
goes
like
in.
just goes in the middle of the ocean.
The amount of stuff that I saw being recycled was insane. Like, it was insane. And they had machines on board to like compact the metal, to compact plastic, to compact everything. And they would spend hours every port offloading whatever, recyclable stuff.
So you're on the cruise ship. When does that end? I mean, and why does it end? Like, why?
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much ended in like 2008 when I decided that it was life on board, at least in the position I had, was too good. So I needed to get off, because if I didn't get off, I was probably going to become one of the crew members that stayed on board for like 20 years. And I didn't want to get stuck. I mean, I could have got promoted and gone up the ladder and really been a cool career, but you do spend a lot of time at sea. And I was like,
Well,
hey.
where does the ladder go from tour guide on a cruise ship?
So from tour manager, you basically go up to like assistant hotel director and then to hotel director.
What is that?
Hotel director is the same as like a general manager of a hotel. So you basically run the entire ship that's not the technical department. So you have like the captain and the staff captain that run the technical, how the ship operates. But for all the passenger stuff and everything on board, that would be the hotel director.
Peter's asking, I just saw that comment that we're on the cruise ship talk. What do they do with the extra food?
Well, it's interesting because there's first a very sophisticated system on most ships to actually use. It's actually really interesting. The nationalities that will be on board for the next cruise to figure out how much food that those people eat and what kind of food, to get really specific about how much food they bring on to ensure there's the least amount of waste possible. Really.
Wait, what?
So there's a system in place where they can say, next cruise we have 1,500 passengers. 1,000 are from the US, 200 are from Germany, 300 are from whatever, and that they use that to figure out exactly how much food will be brought on board based on how and what food specifically, knowing the eating habits of those nationalities.
Interesting.
And they get it down pretty well. It's pretty remarkable.
So they're like, the Germans are coming, we need to stock up on beer and like
Yeah, so some with
bratwurst,
more
you know,
beef
like-
and stuff like that, and more pork versus more chicken versus more vegetarian stuff, depending on where people are from. And, and they look at the ages as well. So if there's a ton of kids, so sometimes there'll be a cruise like 500 kids, so it's less food because 500 kids versus a cruise that has 100 kids. And they do pretty well because I was like an officer, my position, and I would eat in the officer's dining hall. So pretty much what would happen is you could tell, because a lot of the times we would eat off the same menu that the passengers eat off of. But for us, a lot of the stuff wouldn't be available. And that's because they don't really pay too much attention to us. Like, we can get like the extra stuff, but like it's spot on how much food that they actually order. With that said, like obviously I'm sure there's waste, but they do bring any extra food to like the officer dining hall, to the crew dining hall. So they do spread it around so that most of it gets used if there is extra. But they would even do everything from how often you had to clean the cruise ship, depending on the people coming on board. Certain nationalities don't wash their hands when they use the bathroom. So when we had a high percentage of people from those countries, it was actually everybody would get an email that you had to clean your office and you had to clean all public areas, the cleaning staff, like every hour to make sure nothing spread. Really interesting.
So is this statistician that's doing that work? I mean, like, how are they compiling that data?
So there's people in the head office that have figured out like this nationality eats this, or this nationality doesn't wash their hands, or this whatever. Yeah. And then the cruise ship basically they can just see it's all done shoreside in the head office, because they can see who's coming on board, and then they make the decisions accordingly.
So on your tours now, like, the tours
On
that
the
you
tours that I
yeah.
actually organize now.
Like-
I have the ability now to create an experience that's very specific, that people who sign up know exactly what they're getting, and I'm able to deliver exactly what I promised. So there's a much better match between audience, where if you have a tour on a cruise ship, you have everybody from an 18-year-old to maybe a 70-year-old with all different interests kind of on the same tour, and it just obviously that can create some issues. But on mine, everybody knows exactly what they're getting. I deliver exactly what I promise, and so I don't get really too many
Do you
or any
think
complaints.
Do you think being a tour manager on the cruise ship is what kind of led you to doing your own tours through your blog? So essentially, like from what I understand, you were on the cruise ship, you stopped, you started the blog in like 2009, and then 2 years later you started the tours.
2012, I started the
So
tours.
3 years later. Do you think it was just a natural progression because you had the experience, or
No.
No.
No. I wouldn't have thought in 2009 that I would be doing tours. However, since I did start doing the tours, I will say that the experience on the cruise ship as a tour manager helped big time once I did start doing them. So it didn't lead to that, but once I started doing it, for sure, that experience, because I was just communicating with tour operators all over the world and seeing what they did, how they operated, the feedback that we would get, what worked, what didn't work. And seeing that for 4.5 years was very helpful.
all this experience you have, like giving tours, now running tours, like is there something that's like unexpected that you've discovered about travelers, people, the universe?
I always assumed that people wanted to, if they had 6 hours in a day to do stuff, that they wanted that to be absolutely jam-packed with stuff to do.
Yeah.
And that they wanted to run around and see everything. So at the end of the day, like, I saw everything. It turns out, maybe obviously there's some people that like that, but it turns out that the majority of people would much rather do like 1 or 2 things in a day and just really soak it in, really enjoy it, and really have a connection with the place or the activity, as opposed to just a quick experience. And that was actually quite good to see, because I always thought, well, maybe a lot of people, they just want to come, take the photo, go to the next place. But it turns out most people do not want that, at least the people that are on my trips. And
So what's coming up? What's the next tours or?
yeah, so I have like a private tour running in Ukraine next week, and then a private tour in Romania for a group. I have a tour to Egypt and Jordan later this year, one to Morocco, one to Georgia and Armenia.
And a
So
surprise tour.
I have a surprise tour next year. Yes, that's it. You sign up, you'll find out before the tour where it's going. That's it. I got a few people signed up already. Just announced them a couple weeks ago, so that should be pretty cool.
It's pretty nuts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I had a
that's-
lot of requests for that surprise tour. A lot of people have asked me over the years, like, oh, you got to put together a surprise tour. So
So
I
people,
finally did.
it's great when you announce the destination, but could you mind running a tour where I have no idea where the hell we're
That's
going?
pretty much what people have said. Yeah.
Basically, like, you know, when you hear of people who have like untraditional jobs, which is like us, you see them like, okay, they're doing this job, but then when you hear their story, it's like a path that's
Yeah,
like
some
this that you
random,
couldn't
yeah.
really recreate if you wanted to, which is why I find this interesting, because yours is also like that. Like, you couldn't lay that out in a book and be like, this is the plan to get from
Right. no,
calling
for
my
sure.
mom, you
No,
know,
no, a
$1,500,
lot of random stuff
and I'm
happened
running a
along the way.
bunch of surprise tours where people don't know where they're going.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
It
it's
was
kind of
very
nuts, right?
unexpected.
Like,
It was very unexpected. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's great though for people who want to get out there and do something a little bit different too, right? Because I mean, you can go on and find a bunch of people out there and their stories are all kind of wacky, or enough people have this wacky story that it hopefully gives people confidence to go and do it.
yeah, thanks, man.
That works.
It was-
Yeah,
it was
cool,
fun.
man. Yeah, that was
Finally
good
got
stuff.
it working. Yeah, thanks again,
Cool.
everybody, and see you
Have a good one.
another time.
All right.
Bye.
See ya.